Hello, everybody. Um, Welcome today. This is entering the void again. I kind of like that because we're in this unknown territory, or enter the void. So today I thought I would, because I'm in a leadership program. I'm, specifically, I'm in a Doctor of Management for Organizational Leadership. And so, I was in a class, I'm currently in this class, but it has, and some of the things I'm going to provide you information with is what they call organization change theory. And, but before that, I wanted to talk a little bit about Plato. And this kind of ties in a little bit. So, one of the things I wanted to point out was, Plato's allegory of the cave, where the prisoners are right there in the, kind of like chained, and just facing this wall and just watching the shadows of the wall. It kind of, reminds me of people just watching TV, and the people who are bound to this wall, that are watching the shadows on the wall, the only way that they can understand the world, or that they do understand the world, is through watching those shadows. And once one of them is taken away from that and brought into the light of the world, they have a new perspective of the world. And so one of the things I would like to ask you to think about is, most of what comes through these screens, and I make a point of it sometime, in my poetry, so I'll say phrases like, watching the television screen through eyes of glass, and things of that nature. You're letting these realities, the computer screen, the smartphone screen, the television screen, and the tablet. You're letting it control your vision of reality, or your interpretation of reality, because you believe what you see, and you really shouldn't believe what you see, because most of what you see is not real. It's all scripted, meant to manipulate you, and things of that nature. Like, for example, how many people know that every single drug that a doctor prescribes you is made from oil? So I think it's interesting that the Democrats are trying to float all this big pharma on you, and then they're trying to say that they're hurting the oil companies, because they're trying to switch to green technology. And they're not hurting the oil companies. The oil companies, make profit in all sorts of areas, and one of them is big pharma, because they get their ingredients from oil synthesized products, because big pharma can't patent the human genome, so they have to use another source for that, which would be oil in a way, because decaying things turn into oil. And but because of through all that method, and through the synthesization the process that they go through, those products that you're digesting is basically another way for you to digest oil. So think about it this way: what you're using in your car is what basically doctors are prescribing you. And to me, in a lot of ways, it's insane. And that's why I prefer like more natural substances. That's why, I go towards like cayenne pepper and a lemon or a lime and water, to get vitamins and stuff like that, because vitamins aren't safe either. You should really, really research like where they get the vitamins at. Most of the time, like take for example calcium, that's crushed up rock, and no wonder people are getting like gallstones or kidney stones from taking vitamins, especially if you're digesting a piece of rock. So, what I'm trying to do, I would just like to influence people to research things, a little bit more, understand the where the products you are getting come from, understand what your reality actually is. Because if you're living through the computer screen, the television screen, the smartphone screen, whatever screen, then your perception of things is controlled, and you're being fed lies and false realities. Now, on to that, let us begin with this organization change theory. And the way we're going to begin it is kind of understanding the James-Lange Theory first. And what the James-Lange Theory is about is that behavior happens before cognition, because most people are in what they call this automative state. In other words, you're acting before you're thinking, and you're just kind of going through the motions of life without even really thinking about it. Even though you think that you think about it, you're really not thinking about it. And if you are thinking about it, more than likely it happens after the behavior, because you're trying to understand the behavior that you did, because you committed the behavior without the action. So, in other words, you're asleep, and I'm doing this in hopes to try to awake you to new knowledge and a new way of thinking. So, I'm not saying that you have to like hone the ideas like this is, the answer, but it's just steps towards waking individuals up. So, here you go. This is the James-Lange Theory, and let's see here. Let's start at the beginning. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I don't know if I programmed that in, but you see page 195 over here at the screen. Well, let's go to the first highlighted portion right here. Okay, where it says, let's see, we concentrate on the behavior needed. No, hold on. Okay, yeah. It may be that this argument sounds a bit illogical, but let us consider some evidence that supports the idea of behavior change first, then change in mental set. So here's right here where it says James, 1890, William James. And so one of the things it says right here in this section, just below the page 195, our natural way of thinking about these coarser emotions is that the mental perception of some facts excites the mental affection called the emotion, and that this later state of mind gives rise to bodily expression. My theory, which is William James's theory, not my theory, on the contrary, is that the bodily changes follow directly the perception of the exciting fact, and that our feeling of the same changes as they occur is the emotion. Common sense says we lose our fortune, are sorry and weep. We meet a bear, are frightened and run. We are insulated, or we are insulted. Insulated, I don't know where I got that from. We are insulted by a rival, are angry and strike. The hypothesis here to be defended says that this order of sequence is incorrect, and the more rational statement is that we feel sorry because we cry, angry because we strike, afraid because we tremble. And then to back it up, there was, and this is where Lange comes into the picture, this Danish psychologist C.G. Lange, which is just right below the 195. We're heading here, if you look on the right side, page 196. And it talks about how Lange went on to kind of like, he injected adrenaline in the arms of experimental group participants and a saline solution in the control group participants. Adrenaline causes a rise of emotional energy, and basically, his results considered considerable validation for the theory. Compared with the controlled groups, the experimental groups behave significantly more as Shatter's hypothesis predicted. I'm not real sure how to pronounce that guy's name. But in other words, an emotion was induced, but the attribution as to which emotion the subject experienced came after the inducement and the enacted behavior. Since then, supportive evidence has mounted. So this is the James-Lange Theory, which we go down, comes through the James-Lange Theory. There's also growing evidence to suggest that the actual causes of our behavior are rarely conscious to us. Causation stems far more from our unconscious. We, of course, attribute causation via a conscious process, but this process is perceptual. The real causes are the result of intricate mechanisms that occur in our brains, of which we are unaware. In a comprehensive article on this theoretical perspective and put in the context of changing the notion of conscious will, Wagner and Wheatley summarized their premise by stating the following: the experience of will is a result of the same mental process that people use in the perception of causality more generally. Quite simply, it may be that people experience conscious will when they interpret their own thoughts as the cause of their action. This idea means that people can experience conscious will quite independent of any actual causal connection between their thoughts and actions. In other words, we perceive a causal link of our thoughts and actions. Our will is not a psychological force that causes action. So, and then he kind of goes into the three criteria of what it is. But going back to maybe layman terms here, when people do what they think they're going to do, there exists consistency between thought and action, and the experience of will is enhanced. When they think of one thing and do another, and this inconsistency is observable to them, their action does not feel as willful. So, in a lot of way, individuals, behavior, most likely happens before cognition. And this is, I would say this is when you can tell individuals are more asleep than awake. because they're just kind of going through the momentary, the daily things, like, okay, I'm this, I do this and this and this, but they're not really thinking things through. They're not really thinking that, they're actually being manipulated. Because if you're a thinking man, then you would understand that there's a lot of influence out here that manipulates you. And there's also technologies around to make your brain lazy. Like Ben Franklin and Socrates. Yeah, Ben Franklin and Socrates thought, notice that the pen erases memory. And Franklin actually goes into detail about this with the Native Americans when he studied them, and he said that he was surprised at how much they could remember, but they didn't write anything down. But once they started going to, school and were being taught the Western ways, and they were writing things down, it affected their memory tremendously. So, and Socrates didn't ever write anything down because he understood that to be a way that affected memory too. And that's why you hear most about Socrates through Plato. So, those are kind of other ways that you're being manipulated, and I'm not saying to get rid of all your technology or anything of that. It's just best to be aware of these principles, and because once you're aware of these principles, it kind of guides you towards other thinking about the way how things interact with you. So now moving on. Okay. So this is the last portion of this, and I hope everyone kind of like enjoys this. But this is changing organizational performance, examining the change process, and this is a peer-reviewed paper written by Dennis Irwin. So, and one of the key things that I'm going to bring down here are the organizational change processes, which I need to find. Okay, here it is. Okay, so the organizational change process, in the left bottom corner here. So let's look at the first one. In the first sentence, we hit Lewin and his unfreezing, moving, and refreezing model. Now, does this not seem familiar? Well, let's think about the COVID-19 virus. Okay, what's one of the things that they've been doing? Oh, we're gonna lock down, and then, which is, well, they actually begin with, I'd say, freezing, and Lewin's model, is aimed at changing behaviors in groups, involves actions initiated in phases over time. So, they're first they introduce kind of like this unfreezing. Oh, we got this virus, and look, it's moving, and now we need to freeze, and so lockdown. You're all locked down, and then now it's okay. The virus is gone a little bit. You can come out. Oh, it's moving back again. Oh, lockdown again. Okay, so that's definitely a model right there. I mean, if you want to research more into that and on how that might be changing behavior, then go in and look into Lewin's organizational change process. Okay. Other ones are, let's see here. Okay, then you got Kotter's. And Kotter's is kind of like, it's establishing a sense of urgency. So you got the COVID virus, and then forming a guiding coalition. Think about Fossey and things of that nature. The people are like, in the beginning he was like, there's no reason to wear a mask. Oh, now you need to wear a mask. And then think about they're creating this new vision for everything, like, oh, because of this situation, we need to have, all this other stuff because humans are just too weak. Humans can't defeat a virus. Us elites must step in and save the human race from, something we caused in the first place. I always find it strange that the government creates problems and then creates the solution to the problem, which causes more problems, and then you can see that they're communicating that vision. They're empowering, let's say celebrities, to and social media stars and things of that nature. They're empowering individuals to act in removing the obstacles. They're creating short-term wins by continuously, locking you down, and then they're consolidating improvements and creating more change. As you can see, this is like a never-ending process, and then institutionalizing new approaches. I mean, hello, people, come on. This is Kotter's 8-step model. Now I need to find McKenzie real fast. Okay, so here's the McKenzie S Model base framework, and so let's look at their steps. Okay, so here's, you got an strategy, structure, systems, style, culture, staff, skills, shared variables, and strategy is actions a company plans in response to changes in its external environment. And you can think of this in a way as COVID-19, because they're pushing these other systems that they're trying to create. Okay, so you got the basis of specialization. Structure is the basis of specialization and co-coordination, influenced primarily by strategy, size, and diversity of organization. Systems, formal and informal procedures that support the strategy and structure. Now, these three are, I believe, what they call the hard S, and these four are called soft S's. And, the McKenzie S model is something that you can also do a little bit more research. I wouldn't necessarily say that you need peer-reviewed. You can probably look at this at Google, or maybe even Google Scholar, just to kind of get, because they'll still have all this stuff and explain it. Peer-reviewed mostly. This is just studies done and the information that they have valued in it. A lot of people really rely too much on peer-reviewed literature, and they shouldn't rely so much, because peer-reviewed literature takes time, and a lot of people don't know it's just research and evidence. It doesn't prove anything. So, I mean, anybody who thinks peer-reviewed literature proves anything is lying to you. So, this is, and then the soft S's would be like style and culture, and these are this 7-step model are the ways how they categorize things, and how, one thing can lead to a different change of the other. That's what you'll do, when you research this, more thoroughly and stuff like that. And I'm not going to do an hour presentation on it, but I just wanted to give you some information on, what is it that they're relying on change. This way you can predict how they're going to do it. You can see that, by doing this, that this is nothing that happened by accident. This is all planned, because they're using all these strategies to influence you, for different things. And because that's their goal. And that's how they control and manipulate you more. So I thought I would just kind of like share this. Of course, everything I do on here is part of my novel, and um, you'll kind of understand these more in depth. When I get to this point in time. My first novel, I do plan on it coming out either this year or next year. The latest 2024. The only way that it's going to come out this year is if I get an agent real fast. And there's like a publisher that wants my book to go like as soon as possible. Then you might see it in like November or December of this year. More than likely, the two dates I'm looking at are 2023 and 2024. So, all that depends. But eventually in the writing process, I'll get there. And I hope you like my novel. The first book, I do imagine, might seem a little confusing to some people if you haven't researched, like Zecharia Sitchin, or understand maybe the alien theory, some of the QAnon stuff, but it's gonna be, in my mind, it's interesting, but you kind of gotta understand maybe some of that stuff to kind of fully grasp the understanding of it, or understand the direction that the novel may be heading. But anyway, I just wanted to show you these things so that you know that this is planned, and that you are being manipulated. And manipulated may be kind of sometimes has a negative connotation to it. Everybody's manipulated by something. But in this instance, the goal of what certain elites want to do is not what I would call good for humanity. It's quite negative. And so I'm trying to wake you up to some of these things that are happening and the way in which it follows. But I hope I wasn't like too redundant or anything like that. And I've probably been going for more than what I can think of right now. What am I at? 27 minutes? So, I'm gonna let you be. See you guys the next time. I hope you find this interesting, and I hope I've provided some good material for you to research and understand maybe a little bit more. So, have a good one. Bye-bye.